Are you an agent that's struggling with the objections that you get on your listing presentation, and you're getting those sellers that just are hammering you down with objections after objections, and you're really not able to come up with what you think is the right answers or overcome them? Well, in this video, I'm going to be going over my top 10 objections that me and my team personally face when we're dealing with sellers, and how we overcome them, and how we actually overcome these objections to build more trust, to ultimately get the listing because we're able to handle these sales objections. Let's dive in. What's going on, people of the world? This is Russell Mortlock, and I'm super stoked to provide you some immense value on how you can overcome these objections that may be hindering you during your listing presentation. Let's start off with the first one that we get all the time, and the one that I personally feel like sucks the most, because at the end of the day, what sellers are looking for is getting the most amount of money out of their home, and that's another agent told them that they could sell it for higher. And the reason why I think this one is the hardest out of everyone else is because in the seller's mind, they already think we get paid way too much money, which I'll get to that objection later down the line. But the whole thing is they just hear the dollar signs after the amount, and a lot of times people are selling their homes to buy the next one, and having another $20,000 or $50,000 extra really is game changing for people in terms of the whole real estate process. So this is a very difficult one to overcome, and I'm going to be sharing what we say. And here's where your skills got to be really bang on as a real estate agent, where you've provided them all the information about what's going on in the current market and what's selling and what's actually sitting. A lot of times when we meet with these sellers, when they want too much money, is they're referring to Betty Lou Sue's house that's listed for 1.3 million down the street, that has never sold and has been on the market for half a year, and they keep relisting. It's probably never going to sell, not even close to that. But in their mind, they think that you giving them a price of 1.2 million is cutting them short because Betty Lou's house is at 1.3, and that other real estate agent came back in and told them, yeah, I can get 1.3 for you, because their whole intentions is to get the listing, and I'm going to work you down as expectations are met and the price wasn't able to achieve. So during this process, we make sure we show them everything, and we use a really easy script where we acknowledge the seller is never wrong. We say, hey there, Mrs. Seller, I know that you're referencing that Betty Sue's house down the block is 1.3. We've gone over all the information, and you see that price per square foot right now is at 500 per square foot. That's what the most recent solds are happening in your neighborhood, and that it's taking 60 days to sell, and this is the average that we're seeing. And I know you keep reference to that, and the other agent is the one that told you that. However, what a lot of times the strategy these agents use is they tell you the number that they want to hear just to get the listing, and then they just work you down completely. And the worst part about overpricing your home is, okay, we listed this at 1.3, when really if we come at 1.2, we're probably getting maybe 1,175,000. But if you come on too much at 1.3, you expose it to the market for, say, like Betty Lou Sue's house for half a year, and then you come back and all of a sudden we come back to 1.2. Well, no one's paying 1.175 anymore for that home. You're probably ended up in the 1,100,000 range, or even lower if we overprice that home to start. So just like we talked about earlier, your most important thing is getting the most amount of money. I feel this is what's going to actually get the job done. And that's how we approach it. We just make sure they're totally informed. We try to rationalize it, and we try to flip it back on them too. A really good one there too is saying, hey, what flipping out when they go to buy? So say when you're going to buy and you see everything selling for 1.2 million, are you coming in and offering 1.3? You know what I mean? When this house is at that? No, God, no. You're trying to get it for under 1.2, and you're trying to get a good deal. So what makes you think that not every single person else is going to be trying to do the same when they buy your home? And if you want our cheat sheet for handling sales objections, just comment your email in the description below. I'll personally email that over to you, so you get a copy of exactly the framework and what we do to handle these objections. The next one, your commission is too high. So here's something that I really found with me being quite friendly and really easy to deal with. is where you got to buckle down and you got to put on your mean face. And this is where I'll get a really good posture and I'll come in and I'll be like, hey, thank you, Mr. Seller, for bringing that up. But cutting our commission is something that we just do not do. And I'll look and stare and I'll say nothing. And I get a really stern voice and I go on. And that's how it is. Do you have any other questions? And in my personal point of view, real estate agents' commissions haven't really changed, but the expenses to list the home and how much our board fees are and everything else and the cost of living have gone absolutely through the roof. So do not cut your commission, please. Please, just the best method I've found here is everyone has all these little fancy things to say like, oh, how do you think I'm going to negotiate if I just let you cut my commission now? Kind of deal, where the most effective way is you just tell them, no, that's not something that we're going to do. And it's not something that we're ever going to do. And it's plain and simple. And then you move on. It does sound like a bit of a prick, but that's where you do have to show your authority. And that's where I've had the most success doing that. Where before I'd be really I would say some, not jokingly, but I'd be really soft about it. This is where you need to get that mean face on and show who's boss. Number 3, we're going to sell the home ourselves. So reversing how I am when people go to ask for a commission cut, this is where I get really jokey with them. And I just list out every single thing that we do and all the frustrations that we have. So I talk about, okay, so you want to schedule photos, you want to get people in through the door, you want to answer the 10 million questions that we get every single time about your home, you want to be able to let people in when it's inconvenient and you're at work. You want to have the paperwork done. You want to just go over and make sure when people are coming at dinner time and you don't have your phone and they're calling you constantly. And I just list the 100 things that we do to get the listing ready. And I just be like, okay, so you enjoy doing all those tasks? Like that's something that you're going to enjoy doing? And they'll be like, no. It'd be like, okay, thank God. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't talking to a crazy person that just likes stressing themselves out and just doing a whole bunch of tasks that they don't understand that may legally come back to haunt them because they don't do it correctly and get taken advantage of. It's proven stats that show that for sale by owners get less for their home even after the commission. And then I always tell the story about how when I dealt with a for sale by owner, they list their house and I got them to accept an offer in 2 days of it being listing for $100,000 less than what they listed it for, which at the time they did list it for a fair price. So this was a pretty expensive house, so him saving one side of the seller's commission, which was 25 grand, ended up costing him 100. And then I just tell that story and I move on. But that one I try to be a little bit more playful with when they consider doing it for sale by owner. Number 4, not ready to sell, just exploring. So here, this is where a lot of people say you got to pound it in them and you got to just keep trying to go to it. Where I've always had a really hard time convincing people otherwise on changing their mind. And there's always something behind the scenes that you got to try to unpack on why they're not quite ready to sell. And almost every single time on why they're not quite ready to sell is because the husband doesn't want to. I'm sure a lot of you people have seen in the real estate process that the female is usually the biggest leader to make something happen in terms of selling or buying a home when they're going to do that. And the husband is he is the sales prevention team. He does not want to move his garage. He does not want to clean all his stuff out. That is a headache. He does not want to do that. So I've always had a really hard time trying to convince people otherwise, but you just got to understand them. What are they looking for? Like, what is the main reason why you guys are against selling right now? And then you just got to educate them. So if it's a really good time in the market, they can take advantage of getting a good price. We'll show them that. But if it's a shitty time in the market and things aren't selling, you don't want to be convincing these people to get their home on the market and doing all this stuff just so you can have the house sit there because the market is changing. So when people are like this, my rule of thumb is you just really got to understand what they're doing and then just unpack it until you uncover the true reason why they don't want to move. And then you just got to find some sort of angle that maybe is enticing, but do not bullshit them into listing their home if it is not potentially going to go the way that you think. And this is the $1 million question. what makes you different from every other real estate agent? And it's something that we get asked all the time. So during our listing presentation, we have our 16-point marketing game plan where we just really pump up about how we're totally different than every other agent and our unique selling proposition. And the framework here is, yeah, a lot of people are going to think real estate agents all do the same job. And what I like to do is I always tie it back to them. So say if this person's in accounting, I'm like, hey, Steve, I know you're an accountant yourself there and you work at a firm, right? And you've worked there for quite a while. So are you saying that all the people that work at your firm in accounting do the same amount of work? Or is there some people that are maybe high performers like yourself that get more done and just do a better job overall? You got to make them understand, because they're looking at it from the perspective you get paid a whole bunch of money to potentially do nothing, which is really not the case. I personally think we don't get paid enough, but I always flip it back to them and ask them questions about their job and what they do, so they can really understand. But then you got to plug in your unique selling proposition on what makes you different. Number 6, I have a friend or a family member that I want to use to sell my home. This is something that truthfully is probably really tough to overcome, and something I always tell the people when I hear that is like, hey, I absolutely respect that you want to use your family and friends, and personally to me it means the world when my family and my friends use me, but here are some concerns that I have with you doing that. And then you just kind of outline some of the things about how I've seen it in the past where a family member or a friend lists your home and it doesn't go as well and you lose one of your best friendships that you ever had. The other part is they're going to be asking you a lot of personal questions financially, what you got in the bank, all those kind of things. And it might be a little bit uncomfortable for you to be releasing that information with your family member or friend. And then I just throw it back on them and see if they want to continue. A lot of times, and this is where I think personally, I do love hearing that, because it's nothing better than when your family and friends come back to you for business. This really helps us in terms of our bottom line, boosting our sales. But this is a tough one to overcome, but that's the approach that I take for that. Yeah, and if you're getting a lot of value from this video, you're going to want to join the Apex group. We got bi-weekly masterminds from top agents all across North America sharing exactly what they do to scale their business. It's free and you can come and join. Number 7, how many homes have you sold in the area? And this one can be tricky, especially for me as a new agent. I haven't sold a ton of homes in specific areas where you got some top dogs who've maybe sold 10 homes in the same neighborhood. And here, once again, you cannot be a bullshitter. If you haven't sold homes specifically in their area, you got to let them know. But you can share stories of how you had sold homes in different neighborhoods and had a lot of success. But if you haven't, don't BS them. But if you do have some stuff in there, really accentuate, especially if they potentially might have known who you sold in that area. If it was Betty Lou Sue's house that you ended up getting the listing after and finally selling it after it's been on the market for multiple years, you want to reference that and tell stories about that, because they're going to know her. They're going to know the experience she had and how long it was trying to get sold for. And then you came in and you're an absolute rock star and sold the show. Number 8, the market seems slow. We're going to wait till spring. And personally, this is something that I'm dealing with almost every single listing presentation that we're going on now. And we have a really good framework on what we use here, and we use this from data. So we tell clients that, hey, a lot of times when people list in the spring, yeah, that's when most of the activity is, but you also got 10 times the amount of people listing their homes for sale, making a lot more competition. Sometimes listing it in the off-market seasons, like in November, December, in the wintertime, you're going to get the buyers that are really eager to find that home, where a lot of times you're probably going to be able to get a better price because there's not so much competition coming on the market, where we can price it fairly and accordingly right now with what's going on. But taking this back to you can't be a bullshitter approach is, if you do all the stats and you see, like right now in my market, we have 12 to 13 months of inventory in the single family market. So I'm showing all my sellers that expectations, we're setting those from day one. Hey, there is an extreme buyer's market going on right now, even in the off season. Is this something that you want to go through? Spring might look better. And that's how we handle that. The next one is they do want to go for with you, but they want to start at a higher price. And this is something you're going to battle with every single seller. I've never met a seller that wants to sell their home for less than what you thought. And if you're someone that has experienced that, please let me know in the comments, because I truthfully have never came across a seller that didn't think their home was worth more than what I thought it was. But here's something you're going to face on every single presentation. You just got to educate them. And if they're really won't move ahead unless you get that price and they're fighting you on it tooth and nail, that's where you just kind of compromise a bit and you say, hey, in your listing contract, if we don't get an offer by this date, that we reduce it down to the price that you do it. And you do that in 2 weeks or a month, and you put that right into the listing contract. And so it gives them, hey, we can start it and try, but in 2 weeks or a month, if we don't get any offers at the time, we're relisting at this price. And number 10, we need to do a bunch of upgrades. And so this is here where you really need to educate your sellers on. Almost every time I see sellers do the do-it-yourself handyman special on getting their home ready, they actually do not very good jobs on the renos, and it doesn't increase the value as much as what they're going to think it does. A lot of people think, hey, I spent $10,000 on flooring, that means my house is now $30,000 more. So you just need to educate them on what you think is going to happen if they put this money in there. And a lot of times, taking on the stress, doing the renos, getting it all ready isn't going to net them a big enough return to make a difference. In my point of view, almost every buyer that we deal with that's looking to do a fixer-upper, they want to do it themselves, and they want to do the renos and all that. So a lot of times, putting all that money into it, you never end up getting it totally back, because this is the mentality of a lot of people in the market now. Facing objections is something that we're never going to stop overcoming here in our real estate journey. And if you got a lot of value from how I handle objections, I know it's probably a little bit different than what a lot of people do and a lot of other coaches and real estate agents are saying. But this is my personal approach. You got to find what works for you. And if you're someone that wants to increase your real estate business and needs help doing it, in the description below, there's going to be a link directly to my calendar where we can book a call and we can go over exactly how we can help you scale up your real estate business.